Hi everyone, this is Becky with Becky's Baskets, back with another tip for making great pine needle baskets. Today I'm going to show you how to start a new thread without leaving any visible knot. This was very challenging for me when I was first learning how to make pine needle baskets, and you can see that my knots and extra threads tend to show up a lot on the outside of the basket. I'm going to show you how to make them invisible so that in your finished basket, no knots will obstruct the look. If you have one of my beginning pine needle basketry kits, this tutorial will correspond with the changing threads section at the end of your instruction book. So let's get started. Here's a piece that I've been coiling and my thread's gotten short, so I've pulled the needle off and put it on a new thread. Now I'm going to flip to the back and stitch in with my new thread right next to my previous stitch. So in through the same hole, out through the same hole as the previous stitch. And then I'm going to pull it until I have a tail on each side. So a tail on the inside of the basket and a tail on the outside of the basket. I'm going to take these two tails and tie them underneath my working coil and pull that knot tightly back to the previous stitch. So the knot is with the tails underneath the working coil. You can hopefully see there that the knot is pulled all the way back to the previous stitch. Then I'm going to separate my working coil into two pieces, and I'm going to take each of my tail ends and bring them up through the center so that they're laying next to each other in the center of the coil and sticking up the top. Now I'm going to give them a little tug, and that's going to pull my knot right into this previous coil so that it'll be invisible. Then I continue stitching as normal. At any time, I can clip off these tails right close to the coil, and they'll be hidden in the next coil that comes around, or if this is your final coil, you can use a needle to just pat them into this coil so they're not visible. This technique works great on most any stitch where you can repeat the final stitch and tie your knot underneath the working coil. But if you're doing a wrap stitch, you need to do something a little bit different. So in this one, you can see that I'm wrapping the coil, but my thread's gotten short and I'm ready to start a new one. So what I'm going to do is separate the coil again into two parts, and I'm going to take my tail and bring it up through the center of that coil. And then I'm going to take my new thread and also feed it up through the center of the coil, just enough so that I have a tail of the new thread laying right next to the tail of the old thread. Then I'm going to close the coil back over top of them and flip to the back, and you can see where they're both going into the center of the coil here. I don't want that to be visible, so I'm going to take the point of my needle and press them down tightly and slightly underneath the previous wrap. Then I will continue wrapping as normal. After a few wraps right over top of the tails, I'm going to squeeze those back together so that the joint will become mostly invisible. You can continue wrapping right over top of the tails. That's all there is to it. I hope this short video helps you to change your threads with confidence so that no knots will be visible on your finished basket. Please like and subscribe below so that you won't miss any of my tips for making great pine needle baskets. If you're a beginner and need help getting started, please check out my Etsy shop where you can see all of my beginner pine needle basketry kits, which come with detailed color instructions and everything you need. Thanks for watching and happy coiling!